What's up, guys? Our wrestling podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious, along with Just a Little Package and the Nature Boy Joe, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Today's topic: Mount Rushmore of WWE/F heavyweight champions. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, and check out exclusive content on Daily Motion at Our Wrestling Podcast, and on social media, can you give us a follow on Instagram at O.W.P 2019 or on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast?
Or you could go fuck yourself. Do that as well.
I'm not sure who Jess is mad at anymore, if it's just people out there or it's me every time I say that.
The lack of people don't realize our greatness. Those are the people I'm mad at.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
Fucking dolt. Yeah, I called you a dolt. I did. I went reaching my bag of tricks.
We're getting heavy on the Mount Rushmore. Is this our third or fourth installment? Just where are we?
You
so
don't know when I'm going to release them, so I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Fair enough.
I'm just making them. I'm just doing them when I get lazy.
Just put them in the bag. Put them in the bag for a rough day.
Topic. And then you put Mount Rushmore in anything, and people are like, clickety click. I'm not going to be like, these guys are dumb. These guys are old fatties. These guys don't know anything about wrestling. I love it. It's my favorite. And then usually there's like a fucking 16, 17-year-old wrestling fan that just started watching like 2 years ago.
Like Cody Rhodes is the best. And it's like that, you know.
I've been watching wrestling all since the pandemic. I know my shit. Do you?
Like I understand you just found your dick and you just started jerking off. And it's a new experience and you really enjoying
I like
it.
Watching
However,
Rhea Ripley.
Well,
how do you know that I like Rhea Ripley? But yeah, this is the Mount Rushmore of only the lineage of the WWF title. So you can go as far back as to when Vince Sr. owned the territory, not the national company, the territory. I just figured that'd be fun. Not that anyone would choose anyone from there per se, but yeah, and then it goes into WWF, and then it goes into WWE, but it has to be that championship, not the big gold belt, not the world heavyweight title, not the universal title, the WWE championship. Who are we putting? What are your feelings? Not who you think that everybody else would say would be on Mount Rushmore, because that's the struggle I always have. Is like, oh, I don't want to give. I think of a slot, and I'm like, oh, I got to put that guy in there. I'm like, no, I don't. If they didn't mean a lot to me, or they didn't, I don't think that they were a pillar for the promotion. Like, and it doesn't have to be the biggest draw. It could be maybe during a down period, but the champion that they had, if they didn't have that champion, it would have been way worse. Like if they didn't have that champion, that would qualify. They just have to have held the WWF, WWE, WWF championship. And, and I would say the reign has to be significant. Like, it has to be not just, I like that wrestler and they happen to be WWF champion. Somebody who represented the promotion, somebody who you would look back on their reign and be like, that reign was a bookmark or historic, or they were a pillar, like for that time. For whatever reason, it could be draw, it could be popularity, it could be they were just a great heel and they won the title way more than they
did, they just held the company together at that time.
Yeah,
yes,
they were the interesting, they were the shiny object, like that
carried the company on their shoulders.
Right.
So I don't know.
Good. I like this.
What does anybody want to go first? Do you want me to go? I'll do whatever. I don't know.
Oh God!
I'll go first.
Thank goodness.
So this might be on other people's, but and I kind of drilled down on not on all my selections. Some of my selections a little bit more general, like, oh, I think this person, like people that won the title multiple times. But on this specific one, I actually kind of drilled down a little bit just because I thought this specific run of their title was more significant than later versions of it. And I'm gonna go with the Macho Man, Randy Savage.
My!
I'm gonna go with his 88 to 89 run. His that year run between WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5. Hogan was gone. In the midst of the extreme popularity of Hulkamania, they had to find somebody to carry that weight while Hogan went to film whatever he was going to film during that time period, or whatever break he was doing.
It was No Holds Barred.
And No Holds Barred.
It was.
And during that, obviously during that time period, not only did Savage step up to, we all knew he was talented, but it was like, is he world heavyweight championship talented? He steps right in, not only did he like was he's a fantastic wrestler, great promos. He looked good with the belt. I remember a picture of him in like I don't know if it was in WWF magazine or PWI, but it's him like in a pair of jeans with the macho shirt,
Yes.
and he's got the bandana, and he's sitting in
Mhm.
front of like a
He's on
beach
a
scene,
dock.
and he's
Yeah,
got
he's on
the
a dock.
and yeah, and he's got the title there, and it's like. And it's the Winged Eagle title, and like everybody looked good with that title, but Macho looked fucking great with that title. He looked
Yeah.
just awesome, and he carried that promotion during while Hogan wasn't there, and was
It
part
was the
of one
first
of the
time since '84 that Hogan left for any extended
yeah.
period of time.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna go
lovely.
with
It's lovely.
Don't stifle my
I
creativity.
mean, and I feel like I might be going in order here. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna put Bret Hart out there.
Okay.
Okay.
And for a lot of people that know me, like I'm not always the biggest Bret Hart fan, just because of
Mhm.
some derogatory things he said about my, our good friend Ric Flair. However,
He says a
and
lot
I'm
of things
not,
about a lot of people, but okay.
and I actually want to take away like Bret Hart's first run. I think his first run was kind of a throwaway where he was like fighting Skinner and Virgil every other week. I think that was a pretty weak run, but like his later run, he was charged with carrying the company through the steroid era. They're like, we need somebody that's like gonna gonna be our standard bearer during this period where we have to go to smaller guys. We have the new generation. We've got and we're gonna focus more on like talent. Um, and so I think that I think Bret Hart's, especially his second run and on, I think are definitely a little bit more important than that first run, which I think they just kind of threw on him at the very beginning, not
Yeah.
knowing what to do with him. He was kind of
Plus
like
that
just a
second run,
placeholder.
like he beat Yoko and avenged his loss from the year before. He feuded with
Yeah,
Owen, and that second run
yeah,
was just like a lot of
Right.
good stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with, and um, this is probably on a lot of people's is Austin. I guess I low hanging fruit. I'm gonna go with like
Well,
Austin's first run,
I mean,
especially his
it
first
is.
run.
It isn't. It isn't, Joe, because like he didn't win as many titles as most people did, right? I mean, as you would think.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
you know,
his importance as champion kind of uh overshadowed everything else at that time. And I think my last one I was kind of deciding between two, and I don't want to steal everybody's, but I'm gonna go with Brock Lesnar as my final as
yeah,
my
it's on my
final choice.
list. Hmm.
Um, I don't think I really need to go in a whole lot of detail why
No, because
it's
a lot
Brock.
of
I
people
mean,
don't
like,
give him credit. Like he stabilized this gross PG era that I
Right.
fucking hated.
Hmm.
And then
yeah,
when at least it was going that direction, like I loved when he beat John Cena like a jobber. I loved all of
yeah,
it because I'm like, dude, you're for that time where I hated everything else that they were doing. Like he represented the only real thing that felt real, and that you were
yeah,
scared of Brock, and Brock could beat people, and like it all made sense. Like he's absolutely nobody talks about that reign. Not his first reign was historic for his age, but that
yeah,
reign when he
Hmm.
came back and he beat Cena was super historic, and it was really important, and it kind of ushered in Roman. Like after, to be honest,
yeah.
like he was connected to
I mean,
Roman early on.
I think without Brock, there is no Ro or, Roman's not as, it's like Lakers and Celtics from the 80s, or like, Pistons and Bulls from the 90s or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
Brock and Roman, they made each other, like they kind of made each other. And without one, the other one doesn't succeed.
Also, one of the
Right.
biggest famous wrestling feuds ever is Brock
Yeah.
and Roman.
So,
Right.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm
I
gonna go with those
can.
four.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna piggyback that a little bit. I'm gonna take Brock and carry that, Joe. Just because when you look at Brock, he's a 10-time champion in the WWF slash WWE. And when he held those titles, when he took those titles, it was just ferocious and dominating. And I can't I can't think of off the top of my head, like, you have great runs, you have great, oh my god, this person's great for this reason, but Brock carried a certain dominating kind of sense when he carried those titles, when he took those titles from people, and I think he still carries it today. It's very Stone Cold esque, where people go, "Oh, I got to face Brock this week." Damn, like, damn, and that's the kind of persona he carried, and he still continues to carry. I think he'll be back soon. A lot of people wouldn't put Brock in that Mount Rushmore for WWE champions, and he's one of the first guys I thought of. So I'm kind of glad you kind of put him in there. So I completely agree. The second one for me is John Cena. I don't even know how to. I don't know how we'll even talk about it. He's a 13-time WWE champion. He's a 16-time champion overall in the WWE when you combine all titles. Um, John Cena. Gosh, did we not hate that guy? We hated him for so long. We hated the 50-50. We hated the Super Cena. We hated so much of it. And now that we're coming back to it and we see what Cena did and Cena's gonna go on a run now, for the next year, and he's gonna put a ton of young guys over because he knows how the business works. You gotta respect it.
I think Cena's a great choice, especially because he gets, I think because of like the 50-50 boos and cheers that he got for such a long period and like the Super Cena, he get a little bit of a stigma and people kind of forget that like he carried that company for 10 years at least.
Yeah, it was 10 years.
At least 10 years. Carried that
It's a decade.
Like, losing and winning and kind of like there was a reason why he was Super Cena because he was essentially better than everybody else and like he was drawing, he was selling merch, he had the same kind of gravitas that like The Rock comes back and he's like, obviously I'm gonna fight Cena. No one else at that time period could really do it, and I think a lot of people sleep on him just because of that the kind of negativity that we didn't like him.
All right, my next one's a little weird because I think he carried 12 as WWE, but I think overall he carries 14, and I'm gonna go with Randy Orton because Randy Orton should hold more titles than anybody in the WWE universe because of how early he started and how he's still going to this day. But at this point, he's still going to put people over because he's, quote, on the backside of his career. I would say Randy Orton looks better than he ever has at this moment, live in 2024. And I hope he wins that title to kind of, quote unquote, tie himself with John Cena and Ric Flair for overall titles because I think he holds 15 overall. But there's some moments from Randy Orton that don't make sense to me in the history of title runs. I find Randy Orton to be in a position to where so many situations where he should have won the title or he should have regained the title or should have held the title, withheld it. And the storyline kind of got away from him. And I kind of feel like Randy was like, whatever you want to do, I don't care. Just let me go home to my kids and my wife and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing because I'm Randy Orton. I'm the legend killer. I can do whatever I want. And I'll just go win it later. Okay. Just come over to my house and kill me later. Hogan's got to go on the list for WWE champions. It's not even a question, right? At one point, he held this championship for, is it almost 4 years?
It was 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah, 4 years. And then he has multiple reigns after that for the WWE title. I know the majority of my championships went to multiple title reigns, but Hogan took it and kept it for 4+ years. And then he would regain it back when the competition, because in my opinion, Hogan brought up the competition. He brought up Macho. He brought up people to kind of bring that title up until he kind of wanted to retire and then he didn't retire. We had the WCW wars. It's a whole nother subject, but it has to be on the list. Hogan for WWF, WWE, Hogan's got to be on the list for our lifetime, for what we've seen. So that's what I got.
All great choices. I started back I really thought about, okay, if I include the WWF, like it has to be for a reason. So I kind of bookended my picks. So my first that has to go is somebody who I never connected with because when we were younger, we were growing up in the Hogan era. And when you went back and looked at this guy, you heard all these things about him, but then you look at him and you're like, he's hairy, kind of short, like big caveman brow. Like there was nothing appealing to me about him at all. But as time went on,
you going Bruno, bro?
And Vince did such a good job of erasing everything that came before because once he bought
Aw.
the company, that's the only like thing. Just like Andre was never slammed before, Andre was never defeated before. It was just like that whole Vince has just rebranded everything. But yeah, I think Bruno to me has to go on there because he was in the territories, but he represented Backlund, Morales, Superstar,
Yeah.
Ivan. Like he represented all of them. His first reign was from 1963 all the way to 1971, almost 9 years. Like he held that title in that territory. And when you were champion that long in that territory, you had to draw. He had the most consecutive Madison Square Garden sellouts in history. I don't know if it was ever broken. I don't think anybody ever could. And because he drew,
Wow.
they were a territory he had to be. His second title reign was almost as long as Hogan's first reign. It was like 3.5 years. Like,
Mhm.
and like it's really like he was the guy that Senior was like, I have to go with this guy. Wrestling was different back then. It was territorial, and he was a renegade
Right.
promotion. They danced in and out of the NWA like board of directors. He didn't like being a part of it. And so WWF was always this island on its own. And I think I disliked Bruno because we were taught to not care about his era. Like when Vince took over, it was like everything before me was black and white, pal. And then now it's all color. And like when we really look back on it, like Bruno was the first face. Like his dad was always into pushing faces. Everybody else pushed heels. But Bruno was the guy that Senior was like, nope, I can market like heels chasing my face champion, which was the exact opposite of what everybody else did. And I think Vince took that with him for a long time because if you look at Vince's champions, he was always looking for his next Hogan. So my first uh, spot on the mountain is Bruno. My
Good
second
choice.
is Hulk Hogan. Like Hulk Hogan is I still think is still the greatest WWF heavyweight champion there's ever been. Like I don't know, he exploded into the national scene. Without him, Vince would have had a hot product, but I think, and especially in stuff now, it's kind of hard to relate to him a little bit. And just the way he hasn't really given back to the company, to the industry and all that stuff is a sticking point for me in Hogan now. But in that time, he was absolute magic for those 4 years. There was nobody better. Like, there was nobody more attractive. Like, celebrities would gush when they got to take photos with Hogan, and he was the champion, and, like, that belt meant something, and I know it
Mhm.
divided a whole wrestling community because it was like, "That's the fucking fake phony title. The real title's the NWA," but then you had other people that were watching WWF going, "No, this is way better, like, than that product. The production's better, this guy's a superhero. Like he's a literal superhero. Like there was no one better than him, like at all. And yeah, some of his later reigns, the 93 reign in particular, was kind of shitty. But I mean, like he represented so much for wrestling. He carried Vince's company for him. Like while Vince was figuring out television deals and how could wrestling be more mainstream, then how can we be more respected? And I think that was a huge that was all because of Hulk. So like when I think of champion, I think of Hogan, like usually all the time.
Mhm.
My third is kind of like what Joe said. I think this is a no-brainer. Steve Austin. Like he didn't need the title. I was telling you earlier, Joe, before we hit record, like I felt like I wouldn't have been offended if someone didn't put him on their Mount Rushmore because it was the him and McMahon feud, but Austin had that. He was the second coming of Hogan. There was
Yeah.
no question, and his reign was super important when he held
Title or
that title for
not.
the first time. Like that's why I love wrestling. I feel the main event should always be for the belt. I think that's what everybody should strive
Yeah.
for. It's a competition. Yes, there's soap operas. Yes, there's things like that all dance around. There's characters and birds and snakes and dogs and like all this stuff. But like in the heart of it, you're trying to compete for the top prize. And Austin meant a lot because the title struggled before because the company struggled. They didn't know their voice. And then when Austin won it, it was like, wow, like that guy made that title more important again. And so I put Austin on there for that reason because I don't know, like he was the second coming. Like I said, that whole war, like they wouldn't have come out
Yeah.
of the WCW war without him. Austin was very important. Um, and then my fourth is Roman, and I bookend it because I feel that Roman like reminds me of the San Martino and Hogan days where it was more storyline driven. It was more for the title. Roman made that title more
Important.
Brock. I almost put Brock on there. I was so close to putting Brock because I feel the same way that you do, Joe, about him. But at the same time, I
Mhm.
was like, he connected with Roman. But Roman figured out that aura and figured out that thing that Bruno had and Hogan had and Austin had. he figured it out. It was like this thing about him, and
Yeah.
it's like a superstar, like a guy that like Hogan was charismatic, but Roman's stoic, and there's a difference. Austin was charismatic, but Roman was he went opposite. Vince was trying to push him so hard as this charismatic guy, and they tried multiple WWE titles on him. It just wasn't working. And then the second he reserved himself and he was stoic and he let Paul Heyman start talking for him and he let it. Now there's this thing about Roman every time he comes on, and that reign, returning it back to the long reigns like Bruno and Hogan and all that stuff. This era doesn't remind me of the Attitude Era. It reminds me of the Rockin' 80s era because of the storylines and Roman. And I feel like his title reign was super fucking important. It's why it's so important that if he wasn't champion for as long as he was, Cody's win wouldn't have meant shit. It might have meant shit for a week or so because he's dedicated to Dusty. I get it. But not only paying tribute to his father, but beating Roman. Roman was the guard. Roman was the guy.
Yeah.
So it's ultra valuable now because Roman touched it. And I think,
how do you carry it?
Well,
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely a lot of those guys like that carry I always use their gravitas, but like people that walk into the room and they suck all the oxygen out of the room because people are just like,
Roman.
They're bigger than everybody that's in the room, and not everybody has that vibe about them, Not everybody has that.
I
guess in wrestling they might call it the it factor or whatever. But
I agree. The weird thing, Joe, is that
those are great choices.
And I think that the reason why I wanted to do our personal choice is because Brett does fit in. Like Brett is important,
Of course. Yeah.
Savage, that first run of his was only a year. I say only, but I mean compared to Hogan's 4, it wasn't as long. But Savage, he was a pillar, and his title reign was super important, and it does deserve to go on the Mount Rushmore, I think, in a fashion because it could have dipped. Look at the Warrior. Look at what didn't happen with him, and they thought it would, but it happened with Savage. It was like business didn't dip. Like people were still really into him and Elizabeth, and he was the champion. He was the top guy. And to go from the Hogan formula to Savage is rough. Because Savage didn't wrestle like Hogan, and Savage Savage had to be a normal mortal human being trying to sneak out wins when he could, and all that stuff. Hogan was not. He was super Hogan, just like Cena was later, which makes sense why Cena is on Dave's because Cena was the pillar for all those years. So there's way more slots. There's a lot of there's multiple champions that held up eras on their backs.
And I also argue, for me, Jess, and I know this is weird to say, but Roman and Hogan are almost interchangeable at the moment because of that. How they kind of did the same thing. They held it for that same crazy period of time. Roman brought it back. But I also argue that
Roman is what I wish that Hogan was younger and more athletic, but Roman is the Hollywood Hogan that I think Hogan wanted to be in his mind when he first turned heel and like that.
Yeah.
Roman is that guy. It was the
but
guy
I
who
also
didn't wrestle
argue
a lot
that
and put out his minions to do his dirty work and all that. That was what Hogan wanted, in the that was the same.
But you can also argue that Roman couldn't have had the run that he did without Hogan be able to do it first in this particular genre. So it's like it's right there. It's amazing. Gosh,
this fucking topic, Dave, that you chose.
Yeah, it kills me. I chose it. Damn it! Why did I choose it
every time?
Yeah, it kills
me. The fuck off.
It makes me.
It's all interchangeable and it's crazy and it depends on when. A lot of it depends on any choice when you came up, what you experienced or whatever. So I always encourage these dipshit younger fans. I was like, Joe and I had to drive to Paris, California, to mom and pop video stores where we didn't even know if that was open. It's like I just pushed the door and it opened. So I'm like, I guess we go in, and we would find wrestling videos, and that's where I found a lot of the Crockett shit to rent and all that stuff. It was just so different back then. We worked for it. We went and found our information. Now you dipshits that are 16, 17, 18 years old, you guys could fucking pull your phone up and watch a match or whatever. Fucking learn your shit. There's not this is bullshit. There's Bruno, who's that? I don't even know. The singer, Bruno Mars? He was champion? No, idiot. Bruno Sammartino. Fucking learn your shit. Learn your shit. You didn't live through what we lived through. Nobody lived through 1995 except for us. This is crap. I don't accept anybody. You have to earn your stripes with me. You can't. Yeah, man, wrestling got really bad there for a while. Really? Did it get Diesel versus Mabel bad? That's all I'm asking you. I'm not asking anything else. Like,
If you haven't lived through that, then you haven't lived through shit.
yeah,
The best there never was. Yeah, he will never.
that's
be
right. One of us
those.
put Bret Hart on, and Michaels wasn't mentioned by any of us. Oh, boo-hoo. Oh, boo. Michaels.
Get mad about it. Too bad. For
He
audio
doesn't care.
fans,
He
give us
runs NXT
what?
now. He's like second in charge now. He doesn't give a shit what I think about him.
Yeah, with
Yeah,
only
like-
one eye, with only one eyeball. For
Oh
audio
my
fans,
God.
give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, and check out exclusive content on Daily Motion at Our Wrestling Podcast. And on
Idiot.
social media, don't forget Instagram at O.W.P 2018, or catch us on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. For Jess, Joe, and myself, this is the O.W.P signing off, Mount Rushmore style. Have a good one.
Why was it Triple H on the list? They don't know what they're talking about. Shut up.